Before we begin, I just wanted to say a very huge thank you to all of our new patrons who helped us to meet our goal. So for the rest of the summer, we will be going to a weekly format, at least until my classes start again in August. I don't know what my course load will be in fall, so I can't promise it will be beyond that, but we'll be weekly at least through the end of August. Also, a quick note about our social media presence. We've decided to let our Facebook page and group go, but we are on Instagram, so you can find us just at Stargatezing on Instagram. Thanks and enjoy the show. You sounded very serious.
It's very serious business, this podcast.
Indeed.
Yes. Welcome to Stargatezing, a Stargate gazing podcast. I'm your host, Kathy.
And I'm your other host, Mary.
And every week we discuss an episode of Stargate, beginning with Stargate SG-1.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Okay. I've been really grouchy today, but that's okay.
Oh. I hate that.
I took the day off from work because we normally
Fabulous.
are usually taking like 2 weeks off of work around this time.
Yes, we are.
But so I've been trying to take a few days here and there.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't I wasn't feeling that great when I woke up, so I just didn't do much besides watch Stargate and then Arrested Development. And then I cut some PVC pipes, but I have not finished the fort because I got caught up in a cleaning out my closet project this weekend. So
well, that's good. That's worthwhile. I was going to say I need to do that, but I just moved, so I don't really have. I actually have stuff in this closet with me here that is part cave and part storage closet. But what I really need to do is clean the bathrooms that are already messy.
Yeah, well, I gotta clean everything, and part of the problem was that my closets were overstuffed with a bunch of crap I don't use anymore, so I have been working on getting rid of stuff and replacing it with things I do use to put in my closets.
That is good. Yeah, we got rid of a ton of... I feel bad being wasteful. I just like throwing stuff out, but we had so much stuff when we moved, and that was pared down from when we moved 2 years ago, because we'd been in our house for a long time, and then we moved and we got rid of a bunch of stuff, and then even just being in our last place for 2 years, we still had a bunch more stuff. Although I think a lot of it actually was stuff we brought with us there, and that we're well, we haven't used this in 2 years, let's just get rid of it. And we gave a bunch to Goodwill, but there was a lot of stuff that we couldn't take there or donate anywhere that we were just well, I guess this is trash now.
Yeah, I attempted last week to use our local Buy Nothing group on Facebook, and it was moderately successful, I guess. I posted maybe 4 things, and 2 of them people took, and actually one of them everyone wanted, so...
What was it?
So I had bought this, outdoor lounge chair a few years ago that I never used.
Nice.
I was I'm gonna sit outside and read in summer. I'm not doing that.
I've got a porch. I'd have taken it.
I didn't know you have a porch. I haven't been to your new place.
I know, which is sad. You totally would have been here by now if it weren't for all the COVID times.
Sorry.
Yes, you should be sorry. It's totally your fault.
My fault. I brought the COVID. Don't tell anyone. It was me.
I won't. It'll be a secret between you and me and everyone that listens.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your discretion. So the other stuff is
a popular chair.
Yeah, and the other thing, somebody wanted my crappy IKEA lamp that I had. It was one of the ones with the paper lampshade. And
yeah, I used to love those.
Me too.
We had a bunch of
and
them.
the first, I had a set in my living room, and then one of the lampshades crapped out, and then I couldn't find them in IKEA when I had gone there, so I ended up going to Goodwill, and I bought a set there, and they're like, buy at your own risk, and I'm like, lols, it's $5, that's fine with me, and they work perfectly, so...
Nice.
It was, so I had this one extra one that I was like, well, I'm not going to toss a lamp. That seems silly. So let me just hang on to it for several years, even though I'm not using it.
Right.
But now it's someone else's.
Fabulous.
The rest of the stuff will go to Goodwill. But the Buy Nothing group is weird because sometimes people post like peanut butter they bought and like random stuff. They're like, I didn't open this. Do you want it? Like, if it's not open, that's fine. But it's like,
yeah.
I'm like, that's something you wouldn't donate to Goodwill, although you could give it to a food bank. But
right. I think I would probably choose a food bank first over an online group where someone may or may not want it. And then you have to figure out how to coordinate them coming to get it. Are you bringing it to them?
It's a convenience matter a little bit too. Like, like you have to find somewhere to donate the food. Whereas this is I just dropped off that chair on somebody's porch on my way to Lowe's to buy PVC pipes. And then the second one, they drove into my apartment complex and I went outside and handed it to them through their car window.
That's fair. See, I like the convenience of just going, like, I know where there's a Goodwill, so just going there to drop stuff off, or I've never actually gone to the food bank to make a donation of food I had bought. I've made cash donations or, like, dropped stuff in a bin at the grocery store for them. I've never actually gone to one, but... Yeah,
I just don't know, like, where, in non-holiday times, where food drives happen. Like, I donate money to a food bank, but so that because people are hungry outside of Christmas. I didn't know if anyone knows that, but
people are hungry year round, and it is good for people to have food.
Agreed. Yeah. Anyway, that was my fun, and then I was cranky and just watched TV most of today because I was like, I don't feel well. This is stupid. What a waste of a day.
I was in a shitty mood all day yesterday. I was just feeling like really anxiety ridden like all day and just blah. And it wasn't a day I had to work just because I happened to have the day off from work. I didn't have to do anything, and I was like, well, I should do some grading or I should do some other stuff, but I'm just going to sit here and feel sorry for myself for a while. Even though I don't really have anything to feel all that sorry for myself for right now, I'm going to feel sorry for myself anyway. So that's mostly what I did yesterday.
You can do that.
Me and the dogs.
It's okay to feel sorry for yourself once in a while. I guess all the time is a little bit much, but...
Yeah. Thankfully, it's not something I feel the need to do or indulge in every day, but it's just in a shitty mood.
I am not putting anyone down, though, who does feel bad about themselves all the time. Like,
absolutely not, because I have been there, and thankfully, after many years of treatment for that, I'm not nearly as bad as I used to be, so for sure, no judgment.
So, yeah, but... Yeah. Ideally, a life where you just don't feel sorry for yourself all the time is good, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. That is the goal and the ideal, I would say. Probably. Anyway. What are we talking about?
Wait, where's my notes? Oh, I have too many things open. And I just restarted my computer too, but I was like, let me read about PVC pipe connectors just in case I need more of them. I don't.
PVC is fun. I used to love building stuff with PVC.
I bought everything that was in the specifications, so hopefully we're good. I was just like,
I'm sure you're fine.
If I want to build a smaller one, what if I need to connect 2 bits I cut and they're too short, but I want to use those instead of buying more piping? Anyway, I didn't get very far in that, but I have all these tabs open. Okay, they're gone.
I always have 1 million tabs open and like 5 million windows, and then Jeff gets mad at me, and he's like, you wonder why your computer acts up. It's because you've got 5 billion tabs open. I'm like, well, I teach stuff, and I use a lot of them for teaching, and then I use some of them for job searching, which thankfully I'm not doing right now, but I'm keeping an eye on things just in case my adjunct positions decide not to rehire me for fall. I might need some of these things, and I've bookmarked them, so most of those are closed. But I've got a bunch of podcast tabs here. Oh, yeah. Most of this is actually either podcast or school stuff.
Yeah. I try to start fresh when we're doing the recording, so I restarted the computer and I only opened the stuff we're using, but then I was getting distracted. So
that's fair.
Oh, so we're watching something, or we watched something.
All right. We are here to talk about a show, aren't we? We are doing podcasting.
Today we watched Stargate SG-1, Season 2. I almost said 1. We are in Season 2, Episode 2, In the Line of Duty. Duty. I don't know why I say that. Duty. Okay. Anyway.
How old are we again?
Too old.
Too old.
We start in basically a war zone in this episode. We open on there's a bust of this guy. I don't know.
It was a creepy looking thing, yeah. I made a note of that too.
Like, hello, there's a bust.
It's actually more than just a bust. I think it was like a giant head on a tiny body.
Oh, I did not notice that. I just saw a bust. Okay.
Like a carved wooden creepy gnome-like guy. Yeah.
In addition to the bust, there's a village in the midst of being destroyed by the Goa'uld, who are firing from above in ships. It didn't look like much of a village. It looked more like a campsite. But
yeah,
I think, anyway, they were on the shore of a body of water and things are on fire. People are screaming. They're running. We can see in the midst of it that there are SG people there too. They are trying to return fire at the ships with their guns, which was very effective.
I also thought that was an interesting choice.
We see Jack and Carter running presumably towards the gate, but Carter stops to help a man laying on the ground. She says he's still alive. Jack runs by, urging her to get going. He's carrying some kid. I also liked that Teal'c was bald in this episode. I mean, he's always bald, but he had nothing on his head. He had nothing on his head. Sam had a helmet on that she then takes off to help when she goes to help this guy. Jack had his baseball cap, and Daniel had a nice brimmed hat. They all wore different hats.
Different headgear.
Yeah, I was amused by that. I'm sorry,
Fair.
I'm all over the place right now.
Yeah. Doesn't Daniel have like a bucket hat that he often wears?
What's a bucket hat?
The kind of hat that Daniel wears.
The one he was wearing in this episode?
I don't remember, but I think so, if it's the one that I remember him wearing on many occasions.
I'm going to Google that because I need to know what it looks like. Oh, yes, that's what he was wearing. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the gate, Daniel and Teal'c are helping people through the gate, escaping from the murderous Goa'uld and escape.
P. Sherman, 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney.
Jack hands off the child to Teal'c and goes back for Carter. Daniel finds himself a very burned man to help. He says he's alive, but he bets he wishes the man wasn't. Or no, that's the wrong way to say that.
What?
Daniel says the man is alive, but he's betting that the man wishes he was not alive because he is covered in burns.
Ooh.
Which is very sad.
Yes,
although,
which is why you're laughing.
Yeah. Well, although later it turns out it didn't matter. It was fine.
It's true.
Sam's doing CPR on the man she was helping, and he grabs the back of her head and holds her there for a moment. When she pulls away, she looks like she's trying to recover a bit, but then we see her eyes flash. Oh shit. Jack reaches her and gets her going. She wipes off some blood on her mouth, and they run for it. Well, they all make it. They all make it through, basically, to the SGC, which is receiving all of these wounded people. And once Jack and Sam get through, they lock it up. Jack asks Sam if she's okay. She says she's fine, but she's kind of looking around like, where am I?
In the meeting room, Daniel says that the Nassians hadn't been visited by the Goa'uld in over 3 centuries, and that they are, and corrects himself to, were a peaceful people. Although technically they're still survivors, so they're not were past tense. They still exist. He said that they had been eager to help set up a research outpost, so they'd been working pretty closely with SG-1 for a while, and the attack seemed to be completely unprovoked. Daniel said that they didn't even see the mothership approach or have any indication that it was there before the gliders just randomly showed up seemingly out of nowhere. Hammond says that it wasn't really like the Goa'uld to just show up unprovoked, but Jack points out that it's possible the Goa'uld knew SG-1 were there and wanted retaliation. Daniel's like, I don't know why they would care that we're here, but Jack does point out that they just won a major battle against Apophis. So I don't really know why Daniel was confused by that, but
I mean, he knows what he's talking about for the rest of this, but that was just kind of weird.
Yeah. I thought, foreshadowing about what I'm going to say later about the episode, I thought that the dialogue in this episode seemed frequently weird and disjointed and often repetitive too. So.
Sounds like me talking.
Yes. So, yeah, I don't know if that's something that you noticed at all, but
No.
there were some points where I was taking notes and I'm like, didn't I already type this? And I would read like a couple lines up. I'd be like, yes, I did already type it. They're just saying it again. Okay.
Gotta really drive the point home.
Yeah. Anyway, Tilk says that the Goa'uld often will wipe out societies just for fun, so it wouldn't really be that surprising if they did just come up and destroy this planet for no reason. Daniel is still skeptical, though, for whatever reason, as though he knows the Goa'uld better than Tilk does. Sam says that maybe the reasoning wasn't made apparent to Tilk. After all, you are just a Jaffa. There's ominous music. But then Sam clarifies that Apophis might not have explained everything to him despite his high rank. And Tilk says that that's possible. Daniel reiterates that they don't really have a whole lot of understanding of how Goa'uld society actually works. And Sam's like, well, it's better to understand your enemy so that you are better prepared in conflict. Hammond asks how the survivors are doing. Apparently they rescued 237 of them. Some of them are being treated right there, and then several that they either just didn't have room for or that were in much too serious condition were transferred to the Air Force Academy Hospital. And those who aren't injured are just kind of hanging out and awaiting relocation on a new planet. Daniel is still kind of fixating on why this planet in particular was targeted for an attack, and Hammond agrees that that would be important to figure out, but he says that relocation of the survivors is really the most important thing at this point, and he's assigned a few other teams to coordinate with SG-1 on making that happen and reaching out to other planets to see if anyone's going to take them. As the meeting breaks up, Jack calls to Carter for a second and mentions that it's been noticed that she hasn't gone in for her medical check, so Sam says that she's going to go right away because she wouldn't want to break any post-mission protocol. And Jack stares into the middle distance, and there's more dramatic music as she leaves, complete with a chorus.
She also gave him like a punch in the shoulder.
She did. It was weird.
Which he picks up on, so, you know.
Yeah.
I also appreciated that Hammond specifies that the teams helping with the relocation are new Stargate teams, 10 through 12,
Yes.
which seems to be evidence that almost getting wiped out from space had an impact on perhaps funding their program.
Yes. They seem to be expanding
Yeah.
now instead of shutting down, so that's good.
Way to go, Kinsey. Way to get on board.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yep. Good job.
Well,
In the infirmary. That's where you go for affirmation.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're feeling bad about
Yeah.
yourself, you go to the infirmary and you feel better.
People there are going to be like, you're great. We
Mhm.
love you. And you are smart, strong, capable. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You are our favorite person.
Yeah.
I want an infirmary to go
That would
to.
be nice.
That would be great. Yeah.
But instead, they're in the infirmary. In the infirmary,
Yes.
Dr. Fraser is checking out Carter. She's feeling around the back of her neck, checks out the front of her neck. Fraser says she's sorry to have to do this, which seems kind of strange since apparently it's protocol.
I also thought that was weird because, as you said, it's something they do all the time.
She checks Sam's throat and notices there's a small abrasion in the back, and she does a swab of it. While she's examining Sam, she does mention that Cassie's been asking about her. Carter says she's been busy. After she's like, yeah, Cassie.
You know, I know
Yeah,
that. I know who that
exactly.
is. Totally for sure know who that is.
So Fraser says she understands that Carter's busy and let me know if your sore throat gets worse. Sam makes sure she's free to go help out scout new homes for the Nazians the next day. And Fraser says, sure, but also why don't you come by the hospital and visit Cassie, who will be hanging out with me there all day because hospitals are fun.
Yeah. Yeah, so what kid wouldn't want to just hang out at the
Yeah.
hospital all day?
Mhm.
Sounds like good times.
Definitely.
Yeah. At the Air Force Hospital, you get a close-up of a burn
Hang
victim.
on, before we...
Yeah.
Did you
Sorry.
see that they actually like put the caption up on the screen that said it was the U.S. Air Force Academy Hospital?
I
As
did.
if you wouldn't notice
Right.
by the hospital vehicles. Like, there was red crosses on the military vehicles, and also they talked about the hospital, and it was really weird.
I thought it was weird too, because normally, like, when we go from scene to scene, we don't normally get a caption telling us where we are. So it did seem strange that they would suddenly decide we need to tell everybody where this is, because apparently we're all
trying something new for season 2. I don't know.
I guess so. Yeah, it was weird. So at this Air Force hospital that they were kind enough to tell us that we are now at, we get a close-up of a burn victim covered in bandages. Fraser is there making a voice recording that the burns cover most of his body, about 80% so far, but he is infection-free, though, so he's doing okay. Sam comes in, and Fraser tells her that Cassandra is in her office. So apparently Fraser has an office there and also at the base, and I was wondering how she splits her time between the two locations. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, Sam and Fraser both leave, but the camera lingers on the burn victim guy, and we see that his body is glowing underneath his bandages.
Crazy.
What could that be?
Cassandra's finger painting in Fraser's office.
She's got a huge office.
Does. It's really...
And it's mostly empty,
Good
too.
for her. I don't...
Yeah. Must be nice.
Sam knocks and comes in. Cassie starts to rush to greet her, but then remembers she's covered in finger paint, so she goes to wipe it off. Sam compliments her painting, and Cassandra says her teacher says she has talent. I'm not sure I see it, but I'm just kidding. I don't trash children's artwork. Actually, maybe I do.
Not to their faces, anyway.
Sam loves it, though.
Of course.
Then Cassandra rushes over and they hug. But then Cassandra suddenly gets this weird expression on her face and seems freaked out, so she backs away and then cowers. That's the word I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She is freaked out and cowers by the couch. Sam then flashes her glowy eyes at Cassandra and starts to approach her.
Back at the base in the control room, Jack and Hammond are staring at the big glass star chart wall and trying to figure out where to send the Nassians to. It seems like they aren't really having any luck finding any takers, which made me think back to the Tolan when, like, everybody wanted to take the Tolan, but for whatever reason, nobody wants to take the Nassians.
Tolan has, better tech.
Right, exactly. Surely that's what it boils down to. So, a random lab coat lady in the back, because apparently lab coat, people wearing lab coats are all you're going to find in the control room now, says that there's a call for Jack and hands out the phone for him. Back at the hospital, Fraser and Jack are walking down the hall, and Fraser tells him that she's not really sure what happened or what's wrong, but that she, whoever that is, will only talk to Jack. They get to Fraser's office, where Cassandra has locked herself in, so apparently she was talking about Cassandra. Cassandra does open the door for them when they knock, and then she immediately runs back to cowering against the far wall. Jack sits down with her and asks her what happened, and she kind of comes over and snuggles up to him, and he asks again what's wrong. And Fraser tells him that Cassandra's been upset ever since Sam's visit and doesn't really know what happened, but then Cassandra says that she can't tell them what happened because Sam said that she will kill her if she says anything. So, needless to say, Jack and Fraser are rather surprised by that, and they're like, no, she wouldn't do that, and Jack assures her that Sam loves her. And Cassandra's like, well, she would now because she's a Goa'uld.
Eek.
Yeah.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah. Dun dun dun.
I don't have a name for Goa'uld Sam or
Gam.
Gam.
Sam Hagfish.
Sagfish. Sam of the Hagfish. Hagfish Sam. Hagfish exclamation point Sam.
Yes.
In the SGC, Sam, or perhaps a Gould in Sam's body moves Sam. She's moving quickly and bursts into the locker room where Daniel and Teal'c are getting ready for their mission to go find a new place for the survivors to live. She demands to know where O'Neill is, and they tell her he is going to meet them in the gate room. Gam. I'm gonna do it now.
Gam.
Sam tells them to step on it and then gets the hell out of there. Daniel's like, what was that? They seem puzzled. In the gate room, Sam is impatiently pacing. Daniel and Teal'c arrive, and then O'Neill comes in. He's clearly not ready for a mission. He says they need to stand down. They're on a hold. There's some kind of problem, he says. And he approaches Sam and casually pops her in the arm with some kind of sedative. It was pretty slick.
It was. Yeah, he just like walks right up to her and
yeah,
smacks her in the arm.
It doesn't do anything. Fraser says that was enough to take down an elephant. Sam then picks up a gun and points it at Jack and demands in Gould voice to open the Stargate. Daniel, a little slow on the roll, asks Jack what the hell is going on.
We make fun of Daniel,
I know.
but he kind of deserves it.
Sometimes. What? Sam demands again that they open the gate now. I command you, with eyes flashing. Another soldier shoots her with a tranquilizer.
He only pulled up his weapon and aimed it at her, though, when her eyes flashed. Why did it take him so long to respond to it? Like, she had a gun pointed at Jack, and the guy's just standing there like, doo-doo-doo. Oh, now her eyes are glowing. Now I guess I should take it seriously.
Yeah, I don't.
When she was pulling a gun on people, why didn't he pull his weapon then?
Does seem odd. I don't know. So Daniel's not the only one who's caught off guard, I guess. Even though he's a guard.
Is also caught off guard. They're good at their jobs.
Gould Sam knocks down Jack. Then she pulls out a grenade and pulls the pin and demands the gate be opened or she will kill everyone, including herself. More soldiers pull guns, finally.
Again, why didn't they have them out already?
I don't know.
They waited even longer than the first guy.
Teal'c also readies his weapon, but Jack wants everyone to chill. There's basically a little standoff there with all the weapons and Sam holding the grenade.
Whee! What a predicament!
Jack says nobody's gonna open the Stargate, trying to reason with Gould Sam. We're all gonna live or we're all gonna die right here. He says it is not going to happen, that they're going to let him go, let the Gould go. Yeah.
There you go.
Then finally the tranquilizers take effect, and Sam slowly falls to the ground. Jack manages to grab the grenade to prevent it from exploding. The soldiers take Sam, and Jack replaces the pin in the grenade.
Thankfully, she'd only dropped it right there on the floor and didn't toss it.
Yeah, like that wasn't like the first thing that happened was her grip let go. So
yeah.
So well done, Jack, though, on being on top of that.
In the meeting room, Jack is telling Hammond that Cassandra was the first one to suspect that there was any kind of a problem and that he didn't even really believe that she was necessarily right until he saw Sam flipping out in the gate room. Fraser says that Cassandra still has a little bit of Naquita in her blood, and so that might possibly make her more sensitive to the presence of a Goa'uld somehow. Obviously, they want to figure out how she managed to pick up a hagfish, and Fraser insists that she saw absolutely no indication that anything was wrong with Sam, other than a small abrasion on the back of her throat.
Other than the small abrasion on the back of her throat, there were no visible signs of anything. That could have been anything.
Could have been anything.
Why was she even checking her throat? Like, okay, anyway.
Yeah. So Hammond is like, are you saying it entered through her mouth? I don't know why he's incredulous at that, because as Fraser then points out, the goal is to get to the brainstem, and that would be a very direct route to get there. Yeah. Yes, agreed. Very bleh. So suddenly Jack is like, holy crap, how did I forget? Then he tells everybody else about Sam doing mouth-to-mouth on the guy on the planet. He says that he noticed that she had some blood on her mouth, but that she'd told him that the guy had bit his tongue before she was doing mouth-to-mouth on him. Fraser says if it's possible to pick up a hagfish with no outward signs, then everyone is going to need an MRI or an ultrasound when they come back from a mission, or maybe just look at their throats. She didn't actually say that last part. That's Kathy and I adding that in. So Hammond says, well, for now, let's just make sure we didn't let any more of them back through the gate. They debate what a Goa'uld would have even been doing on the other planet to begin with, and Jack figures it was likely planted there to bait them. Teal'c points out that Sam could have already planted some kind of device on the base that could destroy the whole thing. So Hammond puts Teal'c in charge of looking around for it, since he would be the most able to recognize Goa'uld technology more so than anybody else on the base. And they debate what to do with Sam, but Jack insists that they get the hagfish out of her. Daniel points out that it didn't work out so well for Kowalski when they tried that, and then says, well, what if Colonel Mayborn and all his buddies find out about this? And Jack says they're not going to find out. Hammond agrees. It says that they're not going to give up on Sam, because he always agrees with Jack. And he says they're going to try to figure out how to help her. And in the meantime, Jack's going to be in charge of interrogating the hagfish that is now inside of her. And Jack is like, well, it's not going to tell me anything. And Hammond's like, well, we need to know why it's here. So this was a conversation that I felt seemed kind of disjointed, where like they weren't, I didn't obviously read word for word everything that they said, but it seemed to me like they were kind of skipping over around from topic to topic without really much of a segue. And then like when people were responding to each other, it seemed to not be a direct response to the thing that the person said. Like they go from like Fraser saying they need to check people on missions to, well, let's check the base for a device. Well, let's interrogate her to like, it's just, I don't know. I guess they're just trying to get a bunch of information in one short scene, but it just seemed, like I said, kind of disjointed the way that they jumped from one topic to the other.
Back at the hospital, which we don't get a title telling us where we are, so I'm very confused. Don't know where we are. I'm just
no. You wouldn't have known otherwise, and I didn't. I was lost as well.
Yeah. A doctor enters the room with the covered in completely in gauze burn victim to do some testing. He goes to remove the bandages, I think, or at least some of them, to have a look, and then he's suddenly strangled by the man in the bed.
Kowalski
style. Yeah.
He did not manage to escape and press an alarm like second doctor did. He went out like first doctor.
Daniel, meanwhile, is also in the hospital, and he goes to visit a random woman. We don't know her. Later we find out her name, but I think I wrote, Talia. That's what it was. Yeah. Oh. He mentioned it later.
Did you notice that he just walks right in without bothering to knock, and he's like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't see you there.
Yeah. I didn't expect anyone to be in this room that I was coming to visit so that I could talk to whoever was in the room.
She comments the world is an amazing place. Daniel says it can be, and he introduces himself. And she's like, you guys are responsible for saving us. Thanks so much. Daniel's like, can we talk? But we don't know what about, because that was the end of the scene.
Right. Yep. I bet we'll never find out. No. Back at the base, Jack is sitting and looking pensive. I think this is the locker room.
I think so. I don't know.
Teal'c comes in and says he's about to start his sweep of the base, but then he takes a second to sit down with Jack and says this is difficult. Jack agrees with him. And Teal'c tries to give him some advice for how to go about the interrogation. He says that the best way to get information will be to insult the hagfish's intelligence and make it look foolish. And in that case, its ego might make it start giving away information in order to make itself look better. Jack is skeptical, but Teal'c insists that many secrets have been revealed and many battles have been lost because of Goa'uld arrogance. And he reiterates that that's their greatest weakness. There's dramatic music. There's a lot of dramatic music in this episode.
Really is.
There's also a lot of interesting scene transitions that we get to a bit later on, too. Jack gets up to leave, and as he goes, Teal'c reminds Jack that when he's talking to Sam, he can't see a friend. He has to see a Goa'uld, but Jack isn't sure how to do that.
That would be rough.
Yeah.
Hagfish Sam is standing in a prison cell. There are random lasers.
Creepily
Yeah.
just staring into space, standing like in the middle of this.
Yes.
I thought that was an odd choice.
There are also random lasers in there. I'm not really sure what the point of those is.
Yeah, I get they're like motion sensor lasers, but like she's behind bars, and this is the only view we get of those lasers. So I don't know if they just like turn them off later, but yeah, that was weird.
Jack is let in by a soldier guarding and then sends the soldier out of the room because he wants to have a private conversation. Jack tells Hagfish Sam they've got to have a little talk. Says you screwed up here, blew it, which I think is his trying to use Teal'c's tactic. Yeah. But she shakes her head and tells him you are weak. Jack's like, who's behind bars right now? Yeah. And then outright she says, this is not going to work with me. And she would like for Jack to let her go. Jack's like, no. And Sam Hagfish says, no, you have no idea why this is happening. And she's saying this all in her Gould voice, just,
Yeah.
You really have no idea why this is happening.
And then she sits down in the bed, crosses her arms.
Very dramatically, and like with emphasis.
And Jack's like, I guess you don't feel like telling me anything.
At the hospital, Daniel's still talking to the same woman as before. Daniel shows the woman a picture of the man that the Gould came from, and the woman says that that was her husband, and is surprised to learn that there was something inside of him. Daniel says that he understands how difficult it can be because of what happened with his wife, and he asks if she noticed anything different about him, like any new injuries or scars. And she says that she did notice a new injury on his neck a few months ago, and Daniel's like, months ago? You didn't notice anything different about how he was acting? Didn't his eyes glow? And he starts to get really condescending and is clearly upsetting her. But thankfully he did actually catch himself and apologizes and says that he should let her rest. So he gets up and leaves, and this was a cool scene, I thought, because the camera follows him as he walks out the door and by the room of the burn victim, but then the camera stops as Daniel walks off screen, and the camera zooms into the room, shows us the empty bed, and then pans over the edge of the bed and shows us the doctor lying unconscious on the floor. Pans over to the right, and it shows us an open medicine cabinet that I couldn't see what all that stuff was, and I really wanted to know what the things were in the medicine cabinet in this random person's room, because would they keep stuff in a medicine cabinet in an ICU room? Is this an ICU? Because it's not an ICU across the hall. I was confused.
I have no
anyway,
idea.
That's a random tangent. A bandaged hand reaches up and closes the medicine cabinet, and we see the reflection of the bandaged burn guy. So I thought that whole thing was cool.
Agreed.
Yeah. He reaches up and pulls the bandages off of his face, and it turns out his face is fully healed. He's perfectly fine. He starts making some choking noises as he's pulling bandages off of his fingers, and then he pukes up a sparkle bling into the sink, so that was gross. And he wipes it off and puts it on his hands.
Since I've been watching Arrested Development today, I've watched multiple times Job trying to vomit up handcuff keys today, so this kind of reminded me of that.
Nice.
Very silly.
That is very silly.
Fraser enters the bandaged man's room, and there is a man in the bed, all bandaged up again. So she checks on him and then just leaves because he seems all no change, normal.
Yeah, he's got life signs. Everything's fine. That's scene.
That scene.
This has a lot of short scenes in it. Back at the base, Sam and Jack are having a stare down as she's sitting there in her cell with her face kind of half in shadow. Sam says that if they let her go, she'll go find a new host and send their friend back completely unharmed, and Jack is skeptical and surprised to learn that that might be a possibility. But Sam assures him that it's difficult but possible. Jack points out that the Nassian man died when the hagfish left it, and Sam / hagfish / Goa'uld says the man died first, and that's why she left it. Jack asks what the Goa'uld here was doing there in the first place, and the Goa'uld says that Carter's mind would still be intact. She'll come back like she was before. Jack says that he doesn't trust her. And Sam Hagfish says that she could have killed him and all of the others when they stopped her from going through the gate, but she didn't. Jack is still unconvinced, and he's sure that the Goa'uld wouldn't have wanted to die with the rest of them either. But Sam says, well, it wouldn't have killed me because I am too valuable. And how would a grenade have known her value in order to not kill her when she let it blow up? That logic seemed a little bit flawed to say that you're too valuable for a grenade to kill you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if she was just trying to say that she was going to continue to call the bluff and they would just give up and let her go through. I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah,
it was weird.
This is another weird dialogue scene that was a little bit disjointed and odd.
Yeah.
Yep. And, well, Jack says that that's exactly why they're never going to let her go, because she is so valuable. So she says, I've caused no harm, and you wouldn't let me go, even if you did believe me. And suddenly, the Goa'uld voice turns off, and the normal Sam voice turns back on, and Sam starts pleading with Jack for help, and for him to not leave her, and says that the Goa'uld is telling the truth. And he was on his way out at this point, and he does pause as he's opening the door, but he doesn't look back, and he does just leave.
But then her face goes back to clearly the Goa'uld, so I feel like that was all a ruse.
I believe you are correct, yeah.
In the hospital, the former burn victim is now dressed as a doctor, because he, did a little swap with the doctor, who's now the burn victim.
Yeah. Good thing that they wear the same size clothing and
very
bandages.
Convenient.
Yeah.
He's sparkle blinging an unconscious old man. And this one seems to just kind of x-ray his head. I'm not really sure. He's just kind of looking in his head.
Yeah, it's not really like the traditional sparkle bling, which also covers the fingertips. This one's like a mini special sparkle bling, and apparently works differently too.
Yeah. Back at the base, Hagfish Sam has apparently requested to see Teal'c, so Teal'c goes in, and Hagfish Sam says, you must convince the humans to let me go. Teal'c says they will not. So she says the Tower have become powerful since the System Lords ruled, but the Goa'uld will not let this go unchecked, and I can help provide info to defend against an attack. And Teal'c's like, well, we've already thwarted one attack. We're pretty good. Hagfish Sam seems to be pretty sure they're probably already planning another attack. And Teal'c says that they're not fools, and they believe that Sam is there to plant the seed of that destruction. Then Hagfish Sam says that not all Goa'uld are the same as the System Lords, that some of them oppose them. And have you heard of the Tok'ra? But Teal'c is, as he should be, skeptical, and says that all Goa'uld are out for power and will happily kill their own brothers to get it. And then Hagfish Sam says some seek it for greater purpose.
It's all about the greater good.
Which we don't know what that greater purpose might be.
Right.
The greater good.
But that not all Goa'uld are enemies of the humans on Earth. And she says the Tok'ra are real. Teal'c says, I have yet to meet one. And Sam then says, I am Jolinar of Malkshire. Then there's dramatic music, and Teal'c abruptly leaves.
Just leaves. It's like when people are having a phone conversation in movies and they just like hang up without saying anything. This reminded me of that because he just turns around and walks out of the room.
Bye. Nice talking to you.
Yeah. Back in the hospital, Daniel, once again, without knocking, walks in to the room of the woman from earlier and is again surprised to find people there. This time, the person that he sees, though, is what he thinks is a doctor. In fact, it is the former burn victim sparkle blinging her in the face, but from his perspective behind the doctor, he can't see what the doctor's actually doing. So the former burn guy, abruptly leaves, and Daniel asks how she's doing on his way out, and he's like, she's good. Daniel walks in and just watches her sleep, like you do.
Oh, yeah.
Out in the hallway, a camera follows a nurse, and Frasier comes up behind her and asks if she's seen Dr. Jacobs. The nurse has not seen Dr. Jacobs, and Frasier asks for the blood work on the patient in room 412. Nurse sorts through the giant stack of files that she's holding and hands one to Frasier. Frasier takes a look at it and then is completely overcome with a look of horror and runs to the room of the burn guy, takes off his bandages, and oh my goodness, it is Dr.
What
Jacobs.
do you think she saw in that file?
I was wondering that too. Yeah, well, like, what specific markers are they looking at that would tell them that it is a ghoul?
Yeah.
No idea.
Maybe they did I don't know what they do to people and burn victims. Do they MRI them or CAT scan them?
Well, I don't think that they would have been. I have no idea. Like, you don't necessarily need to do an MRI on them unless you suspect, like, other kinds of injuries. But I thought she specifically said she wanted his blood work.
She did. Yeah,
So,
that's true.
Yeah.
I don't know.
know.
Well, anyway, something in his blood made her go, ah!
I wonder if maybe it looked more normal than she would have expected because the Gua'uld would make him heal faster. So maybe she was, like, expecting it to be, like, way out of whack for somebody recovering from major burns, and it, like, looked like a normal, healthy person. I don't really know a whole lot. That's a little out of my scope of knowledge.
You should go get an MD and then come back and talk about this.
I'm on it, yeah.
Jack and Teal'c are in the SGC walking towards, I think, the cell again.
I thought this was a cool scene, too, because, like, you're looking at them through the grating on the door, and they're walking towards that door.
Yeah, it was cool. And Teal'c is talking about the Tok'ra legend to Jack. So Jack wants to know, is he who he says he is? And Teal'c cannot be sure. And they've entered... Yeah, or they're inside. Sorry. So
yeah, the camera backs up as they open the door.
So they enter the prison, and Jolinar says, "We don't carry ID." I guess I'm gonna call her Jolinar now. Yeah.
This was also another scene where I thought that it was weird dialogue because, like, Jack basically reiterates the entire conversation that they just had, that we all just watched. So I felt like they didn't need to have Teal'c telling Jack about it.
Yeah.
Like, we could all just assume that they had already done this and then pick up from there.
Especially because after this, we
but
get another scene in the conference room where they're also talking about the Tok'ra. So
exactly. They replay the entire conversation yet again for Hammond later. But anyway, we're not there yet.
Jack says that they need to build some trust and asks Jolinar about the badly burned Nassian who somehow got out of bed and disappeared. And Jolinar says it must be an Ashrak, which Teal'c identifies as a hunter. Jack asks if it's a Goa'uld, and Jolinar says yes, it is an assassin of the highest rank who carries out the orders of the System Lords, and they are here to kill Jolinar.
That
does
sucks.
suck. Because Jolinar is in Sam's body.
Mm-hmm.
Awkward.
Very inconvenient to be Sam right now. I only just noticed that your name is in your laptop.
Thanks. I don't have a new laptop.
In the meeting room, again, Teal'c recaps the entire conversation and everything else, so I'll skip over all of that. But then he finally does add that Jolinar once led a battle of the resistance against Apophis, but Jolinar was defeated, yet somehow managed to escape while all of his armies were being slaughtered.
Were those armies Jaffa? Humans? Like, who did Jolinar leave to, die?
Yeah, I don't know. They didn't really clarify that either, so... Again, weird dialogue example.
If they're human slaves or Jaffa, sounds like a real champ, not that different from the Goa'uld.
Yeah. Right, exactly. I thought that was also suspect. Yeah. Jack says that Jolinar seems to be wanted by the Goa'uld, and Daniel asks what the resistance is, and Teal'c says the Tok'ra. So again, we get more explanation into who the Tok'ra are. It says that the Tok'ra oppose the System Lords, and Braytak first told Teal'c about them a long time ago. Hammond says that this guy could be lying to gain our trust, and he says there's absolutely no evidence of sabotage on the base. And Daniel says that's why Jolinar didn't reveal himself to be a Goa'uld, which that whole conversation seemed to be extremely disjointed, and I don't really understand how they went from one thing to the next, but anyway, he points out that Jolinar was probably hiding in the Nassian Man. And Teal'c says that until he is hunted down by the Ashrak, and then when he realized that we may have helped him escape through the gate, he improvised. And who he was here is a little bit ambiguous too, but what I think Teal'c actually meant was that when he realized that when the Ashrak realized that they helped Jolinar escape, that the Ashrak then improvised.
Yeah.
Hammond asks where that leaves them, and Jack says there might be a Goa'uld out there that wants to kill Carter, is where that leaves us. And Daniel points out that they have no idea what this person even looks like. And then we did get another cool transition here to Daniel staring at his reflection in the glass as he's looking out at the gate room. And we fade out into the reflection of the burn man looking at himself in the glass as he is looking out the window in a door at the hospital.
It was cool.
It was.
And the Dr. Sparklebling asks a soldier if they're sending people home. And the guy says, sort of, or in a way, I don't know. But anyway, that was literally that whole scene.
It was. It was a very exciting scene.
Back in the SGC in the prison, Daniel goes to see Jolinar/Sam. Jolinar wants to know why it took so long to come see him. Daniel's all business, though, and would like a description of the Ashrak. But Jolinar says they will only know his face in the moments before he tortures him to death and also kills Sam too. That was
yes. Also that.
Daniel weirdly says he's not getting in here, and Jolinar points out, you are not stupid. Daniel thinks, well, he's not sure you're here or on this base. And Jolinar is confident that he is a Goa'uld and he will find him. And the only way to save Sam is to trust Jolinar and let him leave. And Daniel says, I'm sorry to Sam.
Specifying her name rather than Jolinar,
Jolinar, again, tries to reason, says that they could be a powerful ally, but dead, they're useless. Daniel needs more than empty promises, he says, and so Jolinar dangles Sheree at Daniel.
Not literally.
I just had her in my pocket.
Look what I've got in my pocket. It's your wife. Dangle.
But specifically, Jolinar says that he knows where Sheree is.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah. Okay.
That's it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, that's where it ended.
Back at the hospital, there are transport trucks loading up with all of the Nassians who are getting ready to go. So I guess they've all recovered quite rapidly. And we see the same woman from before. She's in the back of one of the trucks as they're closing up the gate. And then we shift to the cab of one of the trucks, and a driver's sitting there ready to go. And the Ashrak climbs in. The driver's like, who the hell are you? And the Ashrak says, I'm John Adams. The driver's like, you're not John Adams. And then the Ashrak sparkle blings him in the face. And the driver gets this kind of zombified, trance-like expression on his face. He shifts his gaze forward and puts the truck in gear.
The team has moved from discussing things in the conference room at the SGC to doing so in Hammond's office for some reason. Jack is saying that this is a ploy. Jolinar is playing into Daniel's greatest weakness, his wife. Daniel says, but this could be our best chance to get Sam back. Teal'c actually agrees. Jack is skeptical. Daniel says the Tok'ra are different from the Goa'uld, and they only take willing hosts who are basically on their deathbed. And Carter was an exception to this because Jelinar was desperate, basically. Neil also says that Jelinar told them this could be a rewarding relationship between the nearly dead humans who take on these Tok'ra hosts. And Jack says, sorry, but I'm never going to trust a Goa'uld. And then Hammond gets a phone call on his gray phone that the Nessians have arrived. So,
yeah. We go to a security checkpoint and people are coming through one at a time. The last one in line happens to be the Ashrak guy. I should have probably mentioned before that he is no longer dressed like a doctor. He is in fatigues.
I forgot about that too.
There is a hand scanner, so he goes to take off his sparkle bling and put his hand in, and then the guard's like, what the hell is that thing? And the Ashrak is like, it's a ring. Want a closer look? And he puts it back on and sparkle blings the guy in the face. And the guard lets him through and tells him to have a nice day. He then goes to a security room of some sort. It's got a bunch of monitors on the wall with views of different security cameras. And everybody looks up and he tells them, as you were.
That's in the gate room, Daniel is leading the Nessians in because they're preparing to go through the Stargate, which is dialing. End of scene.
Back in the security room, the Ashrak is looking at the monitor, showing Jelinar in the cell, and we pan out to see all the guards are unconscious. The Ashrak smiles and leaves the room.
In the control room, Hammond, Teal'c, and Jack are watching over the process of the Nessians leaving to wherever they're being resettled, which I don't think we ever hear exactly where that is. But Hammond gets another phone call. It's the infirmary who says that the driver of the truck, the one we saw all dazed, has reported to the infirmary and has no memory of transporting the people to the SGC. So Jack...
That's problematic.
Jack has someone call up security camera 16 Delta. There's no feed, though. Jack and Teal'c run for it. Hammond calls a security team to level 16 holding room. And in the meantime, the gate opens.
It does.
I don't know why they continued with the... I guess it didn't matter in the end, but I don't know why they continued with this let's let everyone go process when they didn't know who they're looking for.
Right, yeah. And first of all, they've got somebody that they don't know what they look like, and that could be a Goa'uld that might try to kill everybody once they get through the gate. But then also they have a security problem in that the camera is down in the cell, and they've got this guy who blacked out for a while, and they're like, let's just go ahead with this.
It seemed like a weird choice. Again, it didn't matter in the end, but I was surprised.
Yeah, I agree. Down in the cell, the Ashrak has apparently found Jelinar and comments that the humans have interesting weapons as he looks down at his gun. He goes up and rips the cell open with his bare hands and says that Jelinar is going to die with dishonor, as has been decreed by the System Lord. And he kind of like is spouting off a speech that sounds a little bit like reading somebody's Miranda rights or death sentence or something along those lines. He raises his sparkle bling, and Jelinar says that their days are numbered and to tell them that they died with hope and that Jelinar's death will only feed the fires that burn in the Tok'ra. The Ashrak blings Jelinar in the face, and we get a nice view of Sam's skull, since this is still Sam's body, with Jelinar in it. The guards come in with guns drawn and find the Ashrak kneeling over Jelinar a second later. Sam's body is collapsed on the floor. The Ashrak says that she's dead, and then plays it cool like he's one of them, and says, let's go! And he runs out, and the guards follow him. We pan down to see Sam unconscious on the floor, Jelinar unconscious on the floor. Whoever's in charge of this body right now is unconscious on the floor. And there's also a couple of dead guards in the background as well.
Out in the hall, the Ashrak and his followers now, the Ashrak, along with his other soldiers, are running, and they come across Jack and Teal'c. The Ashrak reports that everybody in the cell is dead.
Dead, Jim.
So Jack and Teal'c enter and check the guards who are dead, and Jack runs over to Sam and is like, Sam! Teal'c, get a medical team down here, and he's trying to revive her. So they do get a medical team down there, and they are bringing her into the infirmary. Fraser has climbed on top and is doing chest compressions.
Very
yes,
ER-esque.
yes. Every time that happens, I'm like, this is from ER. She's also barking orders at the people in there about what she needs from them. So they're working on her while Jack and Teal'c watch on Sam/Jelinar.
Yeah, and Jack was wiping his eye.
No, I missed that. Ooh.
Oh. Yeah, they showed Jack kind of wiping his eye. He looks like he's wiping a tear away and trying to not let it be obvious that he was getting teary.
Missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was sad.
So we have this one peaceful, calm moment at the Stargate where Daniel is saying goodbye to the woman that he had invaded her hospital room a couple of times. That's what it is. So
yeah, it was a weird chaos. Peaceful for 2 seconds. Back to chaos, yeah. So speaking of that chaos, they're back in the infirmary, and they're getting a weird signal from the EEG, which is a thing that reads brain activity. And the text says it looks like they're getting 2 signals, and Frasier's like, well, isolate it, because one of those is probably from the parasite. In the gate room, the Ashrak and his team run in as the gate closes, and Daniel's kind of slowly wandering down the ramp towards him and looks at the Ashrak and is like, hey, don't I recognize you? Because he walked past him before when he was dressed as the doctor. So the Ashrak takes Daniel hostage and says that they can't stop him from leaving or else he's going to kill Daniel.
There was another one where I was like, what, Daniel? You're like, hey, I know you.
Yeah, the way he said it, he's like, oh, hey. It was strange. In the infirmary, Frasier tells Jack that she doesn't really have any idea what to do in this scenario because she's never dealt with something like this, because it seems that the Goa'uld is dying and taking Carter down with it. In the gate room, Hammond calls down from the control room that no harm will come to the Ashrak if he releases Daniel, but the Ashrak demands that the gate be turned back on, and of course Hammond refuses to do that. But the Ashrak says to turn it on now, or Daniel is going to die.
In the infirmary, is it the tech or Frasier reports the tech? The tech reports the parasite is getting weaker. The intruder alert sounds, so Jack sends Teal'c off to check that out while Jack stays behind to keep an eye on what's going on with Sam. The Ashrak again demands the Stargate be opened, and then he starts firing his gun at the glass at the control room.
Yeah. It does not break. It's probably bulletproof. Or at the very least, very strong.
In the infirmary, they're going to shock Sam.
Saminar.
Whoever is in there. In the gate room, Teal'c comes in, and he's got a Zat gun. He says he's sorry to Daniel, and then shoots them both the Ashrak and Daniel. The Ashrak drops Daniel, and Teal'c then delivers the second fatal shot to the Ashrak.
Thankfully, Daniel's out of the way since he's collapsed on the ground at this point.
Daniel's on the floor. Teal'c leans over him and asks if he's injured. Daniel says that's a dumb question, but thank you. Teal'c says you're welcome, and Daniel's like, don't do that again, please. Ever. In the infirmary, Frasier reports the parasite is dead. They're getting ready to do more work on Sam. She mentions an EpiPen or Epi, I don't know. And
it is the same thing. It's just not a pen.
Yeah.
When you're at the hospital.
That's fair.
But it's the same stuff.
And they're readying the defibrillator, but then Sam's heart starts again. So Frasier checks her out. The tech reports that her heart rate is faint but stable. And they give her, they're blowing some air in her lungs with I don't know what that thing is, but Sam wakes up and looks around. Jack says, you did it, Sam, you won. Sam looks at him and shakes her head and says, that wasn't me. And Jack's like, yes, you beat it. It's just being very encouraging. But he's got it all wrong because Sam says the Goa'uld gave its life for her and saved her. And everyone looks a little surprised.
A little bit later, in Sam's room, she seems to have her own room now. Daniel brings a giant vase of flowers, which is very nice and lovely, and he puts it down on a table nearby. Sam is lying on her side in the foreground, facing towards the camera, but away from Daniel. And she's looking pretty despondent. Daniel asks how she is. We don't see the rest of that conversation, and it seems like there probably wasn't really any more to that conversation, because after that we go to outside where Frasier, Cassandra, and Jack are all sitting and waiting, and Daniel comes out and tells them that Sam is still doing the same. Cassandra says that Frasier told her that the Goa'uld left Sam's body after it died, and Daniel's like, yeah, it died and her body's reabsorbing it right now, so she's back to being our normal Carter again. And Jack tells Cassandra that she's just sad right now, but that I'm sure she'll feel better when she sees you. So he gets up and takes her in to see Sam, and the others follow. Cassandra goes up to Sam and puts a hand on her shoulder and tells Sam that it's her. And Sam turns over to look at her, and Cassandra tells her she'll be okay, and Sam looks very sad.
I teared up at that. It was really, yeah.
It was sad. Whew, so that's that episode.
One question I had was,
yes,
why is Cassandra allowed at the SGC when her body is a bomb that goes off if it gets near the Stargate?
I thought they said at some point that her body is reabsorbing all the materials in there, and that Frasier pointed out that she still has some naquita in her blood, but I don't think the bomb.
I wasn't sure if it just all went away. So
I think it's being I'm pretty sure that it's just being reabsorbed.
It won't, if she gets too close to the naquita, it won't start again.
No, I don't think it will. I mean, at least I thought that's what they said before. Like, I don't know that you would have a giant metal ball in your chest that actually would get absorbed by your body, but that's the logic they're sticking with, so. Otherwise, that would be a great question. Yeah, you wouldn't want her to be near that, but.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So did you like the episode?
Yes. I did like the episode. I particularly liked Sam's performance as Jelinar, and then at the end I was like, poor Sam. And it seemed like there would be lasting effects of this experience she's had, which I'm kind of looking forward to, seeing what that's like. I liked some of the transitions, like particularly I had also noted the reflection in the glass one. That was really cool.
Yeah.
I think that I had a few questions about the decision making of the characters in this, as usual, like Frasier being like, oh, there's no way of knowing how to find a Goa'uld without an MRR, even though I found this abrasion in Sam's throat. Or, I don't know, Daniel just being like, no, what? That is not what he's like, but it's just sort of felt like,
it kind of was, though.
I like that threads dropped in other episodes are kind of picked up, so like you get to see Cassandra again, and the sort of hint that the SGC is now being funded better and not under threat of being shut down after a horrible attempted attack on Earth. So I like the continuity. I guess yeah. So those are the things I liked. Yeah.
Yep. Fabulous. I had mixed feelings about it. I liked the overall storyline. I thought it was an entertaining episode, and as I mentioned already, I liked a lot of the artistic choices that they made with like transitions and framing different shots and stuff like that, and the choices that they made for where to insert all this dramatic music. So a lot of it I found really entertaining, but again, some of the scripting and just the way that they wrote these conversations just was weird to me, because like I said, parts of it were redundant and it didn't really need to be said because they'd already told it to us, and so we don't need to see them describing the stuff that was already said to yet another person. And then other parts of it seemed to be like somebody would say something and then somebody else would say something that had nothing to do with the thing the first person said, and then someone else would say something that had nothing to do with what that person said. So it was just odd disjointedness of conversation in the script. And I found that to be a little bit distracting and strange. But overall, like I said, I liked the story. I liked the storyline and the episode as a whole.
Woo! Yeah. Okay. What's next? Busting out the Netflix. The Netflix. Or should I use the booklet? Who knows? Go away, Netflix. I don't want to see the 2021 Oscars collection. Bite me. Honestly.
Why not?
I have no fucks to give about award shows. Or movies that are awarded things at shows. Anyway. Yeah, the Netflix description is... Okay, so this is Season 2, Episode 3 of SG-1, called Prisoners. While exploring a planet, the team is approached by a man who asks for help escaping from a pursuer, but they discover the man is a fleeing murderer. Which... And I'm going to read the second one, too.
That sounds
because, again, that is literally what happens at the beginning of the episode. This one. Okay. After the SG-1 team inadvertently helps a desperate criminal, they are charged as accessories to murder and banished to a desolate penal colony. Only one woman there has the power to help them escape, but freedom might not be worth the price she's asking. Like, yeah.
Anything else to talk about?
No. I hear Pepper snoring, but that's not really that interesting or different from usual.
I find it interesting. Hi, Pepper. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure that you subscribe to us on your podcatcher of choice if you have not already done so. We're on just about all of them. And you'll get your episodes as soon as they're released. You can also find us on YouTube. Reviews and likes are greatly appreciated since they help other people to find the podcast. And word of mouth is also incredibly appreciated because that helps even more people to find out about our show. You can get in touch with us between episodes by emailing us, stargatezing@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter. We're at Stargatezing there. And if you're feeling generous and want to get the episodes a little bit earlier, you can donate at patreon.com/stargatezing. And you can also check out our website at stargatezing.space. I'm Mary.
I'm Kathy.
And you've been listening to Stargatezing.
The end.
The end.
Daniel and Teak. Wow,
It's like Teal'c, but made of wood. Like the creepy guy in the first scene.
Yes.